Yes, I can.
Okay, awesome. All right. Let me just switch on my video. Okay, says unable to access camera. Okay, anyway, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, our valued audience and speakers. Welcome very much to the highly anticipated YALDA webinar under the theme Understanding Your Personal Finances and What It Means for Your Future. Today, we want to provide you with essential insights and strategies for managing your personal finances and setting financial goals. This is because we want you to prepare for a secure financial future. My name is Natalie Mukundane. I'm the YALDA East Africa Regional Associate. It's a pleasure to moderate today's session with you all. Now, briefly, let us just go through the etiquette for this meeting. First, when you enter the webinar, make sure you are on mute. Remain on mute throughout the round table. Ensure your camera is off so that people's data is respected. Type any questions or comments you have in the chat box, and then those whose questions and comments are selected will be asked to unmute. And then if you're asked to speak, please introduce yourself at first. Now, let us go into the introduction of this webinar, and that is the festive season. This is the time people face the most mental health stress due to related mismanagement of finances. Financial literacy is a critical skill that empowers individuals to make informed decisions about their money. And this is exacerbated by the fact that the youth population in Africa faces particular vulnerability due to factors such as unemployment, economic instability, and academic pressure. A study in South Africa revealed that 24% of university students experience depression and anxiety. So this webinar basically aims to explore the intricate relationship between personal financial management and mental health. We have our amazing speakers, and we really much appreciate Marel Di Paolo and Kumo, the authors of this webinar's concept note. Now, for tonight, our distinguished panel of speakers are Mr. Ahmed Moshed from Egypt. He's a financial advisory expert. We have Mistura A. Oyebode, a Nigerian who is an insurance specialist. We have Tami Rubushe from South Africa, a mental health advocate. And we have Portia Mongale from South Africa, who's also a mental health advocate. Now, we're going to start with our first speaker for the day. And the question is, people are facing money issues and they're more prone to develop high stress levels and mental health disorders. Money management education can help individuals, youth, and students understand the value of money. The festive season or post-festive season is a time when people face the most mental health stress. From your experience, what are the common financial pitfalls people encounter during the festive season and making sound financial decisions for their future? A distinguished note to our speakers, you have exactly 5 minutes to put forward your response. Let us try as much as possible to adhere the time. So our first speaker is Mr. Ahmed Moshed. Please take over the floor.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon to everyone, and it's my pleasure to be with you today. Regarding the question that you just said regarding the misconceptions about managing finances during the festive or the holiday periods, this always commonly leads to like an overspending, financial stress, and long-term consequences. So simply understanding these misconceptions is crucial for making, let me say, like informed decisions and achieving better financial results in the long run. And I've made a very quick survey with my colleagues and friends at work regarding these types of misconceptions. Um, So the first one we came with is the misconception that I need to impress others. Like I'm spending more money during the holidays or during the festive period to impress others. Other misconceptions, one of the misconceptions is that like I'll deal with it later. So people often postpone their financial planning during the holiday period, assuming that they can deal with that later on. This procrastination that can lead to overspending and financial strains. Other misconception is that we rely on credit card. We are saying like credit card will solve everything, but we don't calculate the high interest debts or the high interest yields on the credit cards. And one of the other misconceptions is we say to ourselves, "I deserve it all." It's like I need to impress the other. I'll deal with it later, but you just say during the festive period, I deserve it all. Some view the festive season as a time to indulge excessively. They're thinking that they deserve it. This mindset can lead to impulse spending or impulse buying. And the last one we came with is that January, that the first month of the year, will sort itself out. So some people assume that they can deal with financial consequences in the new year, underestimating the impact of overspending in the beginning of the year that will affect them very bad uh, during the whole year. So if we take one by one regarding these misconceptions that we just mentioned, very simple solution that we can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly? I'm sorry, because I saw some comments on the screen that some people are not they cannot hear me well. Can you just confirm
Yep.
the
I can
set?
hear you.
Yes,
Yes, yes, your voice is
okay,
clear.
that's
I can
that's
hear you.
that's perfect. So some solutions for the misconceptions that we just mentioned, that planning and budgeting in advance help in setting realistic spending limits and avoiding debts, and addressing finances promptly contributes to better financial health. And at the same time, true joy during the holidays and festive periods comes from shared experience, not material possession, focusing on meaningful moments rather than extravagant gifts contributes to a healthier financial outlook. And at the same time, recognizing the importance of moderation and distinguishing between wants and needs contributes to a healthier financial mindset. Self rewards also can be meaningful without being extravagant. These are mainly the misconceptions that we just came with. And that's for the first part of the question. I don't know if I still have time to complete the other part of the question or not.
Thank you so much. I especially love the point you made about the participants learning the ability to distinguish between wants and needs. That was a very value exceptional point. Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. That was so insightful.
Thank you
Now
very
moving
much. It's
on.
my pleasure.
Yes. All right. Also for keeping time. That was really nice of you. So moving on to the next question for our next speaker. Um, uh, Valencia, could you move the PowerPoint? All right. Our next speaker is Miss Mistura Alice Oyebode, an insurance specialist from Nigeria. And her question is,
I can't hear you too much. I don't know if you would like to repeat that.
okay, all right. Valencia, could you showcase the question? All right.
Oh, okay.
So it's the same
You
question,
want to go ahead?
basically. Yes. What
Oh,
is, in your opinion, what are the
okay.
common financial pitfalls people encounter during the festive season? And what should they do to make sound financial decisions for their future?
Okay. Thank you very much for this opportunity. I'm honored, and it's very nice to be here. And Mr. Ahmed has basically said most of the points I had to say. Mr. Ahmed, that was very impressive. From an insurance perspective, I would say most of the financial pitfall people make around festive period most of the time relates to how they budgeting. Yes, how they budgeted their income for for the for how they plan to spend their budget. So the thing is, most of the time, people work from January to December, and they've saved up a whole lot, and they are feeling like, okay, December is a time for me to just relax and indulge. You know, different. Well, to some people it might be frivolities, but to everyone, whatever they have to do. As hello, can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, okay. So most of the times, you see, it's during this period, there is always a surge of claims, especially motor claims and the like, because people are getting drunk, engaging in frivolity, and one wouldn't blame them because you know, in Nigeria, there is something we refer to as the Japa syndrome. A lot of people are leaving and they come back in December, with a lot of funds to spend, and friends feel the need to match, their spending energy, but forgetting the fact that those people are earning in a different currency, right? And they have much more to spend than, the others that have been around. And you just feel the need to connect with your friends and to prove a point, to them, to make them see that, okay, it's not as bad as, you think it is. And you see people spending way beyond their income, everything they've budgeted for and everything they've planned to save over the months, they just, spend it and feel like, okay, it's just 1 month. It's if I don't do it now, how am I going to compensate myself for all of the hard work over the years? So that's another reason why, people overspend during this period. And just to take a note from what Ahmed said, he said it's more about people satisfying their wants rather than what they need. You see, most of the time, people don't buy the things they need. They just want to buy things that will make them, stand out, just to impress friends and all that. So these are part of the financial pitfalls people make. Then another thing is people forget to put their insurances together, and they travel without having any form of insurance cover, like travel insurance and the like, to protect them in case there is any unfortunate incident that happened during the accident. Some people leave their own unattended to, during the festive period, whenever they are traveling, and it becomes a hub for robbery and the like. So the list goes on and on and on, and people are very excited. People just want to enjoy, just take off the stress they faced over the months. So most of the times, all of this helps them. When they come together, they make bad decisions on their finances. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Yes, we can.
Okay, so that's basically my answer. Like I said, Samed, I'm just trying to,
All
bring it
right.
close to home and give more practical examples of why people make these kinds of financial pitfalls at points like this. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Miss Tura Alice. Those were really practical and at home examples. I can imagine, especially being a lady, and how ladies are known as ardent shoppers. So those are really good examples. Thank you so much. Now we're moving on to our next speaker, Mr. Thami Rubushe from South Africa, who is also a mental health advocate. Mr. Thami, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. I'd like to start by greeting everyone, thanking Yelda for the opportunity. Very, very, very good. And to begin with, the common pitfalls, financial pitfalls that I've seen people encounter, including myself. The first one is the urge to give that I've noticed because we are in the festive season.
Could you speak a bit up, Mr. Thami? We are unable to hear you very well.
All right. Can you hear me right now?
Yes, much better. Proceed.
All right. I've increased the volume. Thank you. The first financial pitfall that I've seen people encounter, including myself, is the urge to give. Because we are in the festive season and we have a little bit of extra money in our banks because of the bonuses and the 13th checks, we tend to want to give and buy gifts for our loved ones, but often we don't necessarily have the money to do that, even though it's available. And because of that, we tend to not make the best decisions with the money that we have at our disposal. For example, instead of investing in some property, for example, with some of the money you have, you instead buy a lot of consumer credit, like you spend on consumer credit, for example. And that also tends to have a negative impact on you in January, and nobody's really there to assist you with managing the financial situation you find yourself in. So that's one thing. It's the urge to give. We want to buy gifts for our loved ones because it's the festive season and we want to show our love and appreciation, but we don't necessarily have the funds to do that. The second pitfall that I've seen, and I think a lot of people will agree, is we tend to spend a bit too much because the first point, we get our bonuses, we get our 13th checks. And so there's a lot more money in our bank account than we used to. And because it's there, we tend to spend a bit more on top of all of the nice things that you have on offer with all the Christmas specials that you see. Before even Christmas, it's the Black Friday specials, you know. So there's a lot of pressure to spend, and unfortunately, we tend to succumb to that when we have the money at our disposal, and we don't make the sound financial decisions that we need to make, especially for the month of January and the year moving forward, because January sets the tone for the rest of the year. So all these decisions that we make at the end of the year, even though they satisfy us and we feel good about them at the time, when January comes, we start the year with a lot of stress, financial stress, because of all the money that you've spent and that's been depleted. And in some situations, we begin the year with debt because we have to finance. So we get an overdraft from the bank, or we get a loan. Yeah. So it tends to have a negative effect on your mental health because there's a lot of stress, and you start the year with a lot of stress that tends to set the tone for how the rest of the year is going to be. So those are the two main pitfalls that I've seen people encounter during the festive season.
Thank you, Mr. Thami. You mentioned a very valid point. Giving is really underrated in terms of how it stresses, especially people on the African continent, where the African culture is to give, but people forget if your cup is not full and you give, it only leads to your detriment. So you need to learn how to balance. Outstanding insights. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next speaker. We have Ms. Portia Mongale, a mental health advocate from South Africa. Ms. Portia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Not to sound like a broken record, I do believe that all of my skilled speakers have really touched on quite a lot of pitfalls that I do 100% agree with. I think the only piece or the few pitfalls that I would probably touch on with, in addition to what everybody said, is that concept of the savior mentality. I see it in a lot of Black households where if you are the high income earner, or at least the one with a steady income, you tend to fall into the savior complex where it is mostly dependent on you to help out, especially during the festive season. There are kids at home that need clothing. You are probably the one that is going to be looking for Christmas clothing. For all of those extra household income issues that you might have for that the month of December, you will be the one that will be looked at. And then that also moves into January, where when you are leaving after the festive season, there are cases where you're asked, can you leave a little bit more money for school fees, for stationaries, for school uniform, and also just for the upkeep of the household? So you do see a lot of young individuals, especially, fall into that savior mentality where they feel like there is no other option but for them to be the ones that help out. And in most cases, put themselves at a horrible financial detriment. In addition to that, there's always that case of you earn more, you spend more, you make a little bit more money that month, whether it's getting an extra job or even getting a good pay increase or a bonus, and it kicks you into that mentality that because you make more that you can afford to spend more. So you do find quite a lot of young people in that kind of pitfall as well, where the little placebo effect of that 13th check or that bonus makes them think that they can afford a much more grander lifestyle than they would have before. But obviously, just to not repeat what everybody else said, that is pretty much the pitfalls that I could touch on as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I love how you've expounded on the placebo effect. People actually really do get confused, thinking a salary raised means they have a free ticket to spend more, but that is not the case. I love that. All right, a big applause to our speakers. That was really, really good insights shared on the general question. Now we're going into a more individualized question session. We'll be asking the speakers different questions to just hear their personalized insights. So we'll start with Mr. Thami Rubushe. Please share with us and the audience a story on your mental health journey. Could you share with us some struggles that you've faced and how they've affected your ability to make sound financial decisions, and how all this has impacted on your life? Mr. Thami, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Well, my story really begins in childhood. A long story short, there was a lot of traumatic experiences that I went through in the form of neglect and seeing a lot of arguing and a lot of negativity in the house while I was growing up. So that started the anxiety phase of my life, and I didn't realize even that I was anxious until my adult life, where I started having a stable job, and I then started having to manage my own finances, um, coupled with the stress of being anxious and at the time suffering from depression, but I wasn't aware. I knew that personal finance is very simple in principle, but I didn't implement the principles in my life actively because there was a lot at the time going on in my mind, and I just didn't have the right mindset to begin having the right financial habits, which is spending less than what you earn and saving the rest. It's very simple. The rules of personal finance are simple. They're even boring, if you ask me. But those are the principles that have ensured people create wealth. Spend less than what you earn, save the balance, and invest that in tools that will actually grow your money. So I knew what I had to do, but because of all that was going on in my mind, I did not implement that, which added further on to my stress because I was not making good financial decisions. So it became a vicious kind of cycle, you know. And eventually in 2021, I decided that I'm not in a good state and I went to the doctor. I told him that I'm not feeling very well. it's not anything physical. And I explained to him that I think I'm depressed. He then talked to me, and after the conversation, he diagnosed me with severe depression. I then went on to spend 7 days at a hospital working with a psychiatrist, a psychologist, and an occupational therapist. That week was, I could say, the best week of my life because I used that week to actually get to the core of why I was depressed and anxious. And so many insights came from the therapy sessions during that week. After that experience, I then realized that it's not the knowledge that you have, it's the mindset that you adopt that's more important. Because, like I say, I knew all that I had to do, I just didn't implement it. And I knew that I had to work on the mental part of my life first to sort that out before I could start making real progress. And so I spent the 2021, the rest of the year, just working on my mental health as an individual. In that journey, I realized that I actually want to spread awareness about this, especially to men in my country in particular, because there's a problem where men are actually not even aware, in my humble opinion, that they are depressed and anxious. And I'd like to just raise the bell. And ever since I've started adopting this mindset of raising awareness and making sure my mental health is top of mind, I'm making better financial decisions. Slowly but surely, in 2022, I managed to get out of all the bad credit that I acquired. I managed to establish a positive credit profile. And so now I'm on that path to just making sure that I keep and maintain a positive credit profile and make better decisions with the money that I have every month. It's a slow process, but I believe that I'm on the right path because progress doesn't usually occur in one day. It's a step by step thing. So that is my story, and that is how depression and anxiety has impacted my ability. I knew what I had to do, but because of my mindset at the time, because I was depressed and anxious, I just did not implement. And in finance, there's speak about the opportunity cost. There's definitely an opportunity cost because I had the time and the funds to start investing earlier. But the good news is there's always time to invest. You know, you can start tomorrow. So that's my story. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Thami. I know it's not easy to share your story, and the fact that you took the time to be vulnerable with us, we really, really, really appreciate that. The audience, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box for Mr. Thami. All right, so let us go ahead to our next speaker. Our next speaker is none other than Miss Portia Mongale. Miss Portia, what are the key stresses and anxieties commonly associated with financial challenges? And seeing that we're living in Africa, how do cultural or societal expectations during this festive season impact people's financial choices? And according to you, what are the implications of this to their mental health in the long run? Also, from your experience and from the case studies you've probably addressed within your work life, how do you think we can address and mitigate these challenges so that we promote better mental health well-being? Ms. Portia, the floor is yours.
Thank you. That is a very loaded question. But I will
Yes.
start. Yeah. I will start first with the key stresses and anxieties that are commonly associated with having financial challenges. Firstly, it's important to know what is a stressor. So, a stressor is basically a situation or an event that may occur that makes us feel stressed. This may vary for many people and it might be many things. Some of these stresses might be internal or there might be external triggers. And in some cases, most of the time, or in some cases, in true, these stresses will come to you in a very subconscious manner. So you won't even realize that you are under these stresses. You'll just feel your mood completely change, or you'll feel like you're just not feeling yourself. Some very common stresses is what I've identified in people and also in myself is, and probably you will also relate, is when people get a bit anxious towards payday. When payday is not something to be excited about because you're already thinking about all the debit orders and all of the transactions that are going to occur in your account. Black tax, that is something that is a big stress of a lot of people. I've had people where they told me that going to the petrol station to pour petrol into their car is a big stressor for them because that's money leaving their account. You have people getting upset when somebody tries to borrow money from you, or being afraid to even check your bank balance on your phone. So these stresses are really, they could be anything. It could be a death in the family. It could be an unforeseen medical cost. We just got out of COVID. We just got out of the flu season as well. You also have cases where there might just be emergencies that need money, running costs, which will obviously trigger that stress and that anxiety in people. In terms of our culture and our society, especially in Africa, what are some of those, financial choices that we see people put themselves in, and also what are those implications? I want to give everybody what I like calling my use cases when I'm having these kind of chats. Three use cases. So the first use case is basically you have a university student, first in their family, probably first in their community to get to go to university. Them going to university does mean that there isn't somebody who's hopefully going to work so that they can push an income into their families. When you are in varsity, what is your family eating? In those kind of cases, during the festive season, you're going home for the holidays. Unfortunately, you become an extra mouth that your family has to feed. And you start having all of these senses of anxiety because you are faced with reality. You're no longer at varsity, you're no longer in your dorm rooms, you're now back at home, and you are reminded by this financial situation that your family currently is in. And we've actually seen a correlation that after the festive season, there's always a spike in dropout in university students because of that reality kicking in, that actually can't afford to go to varsity. I need to support my family. Obviously, the long-term implications from your mental health perspective is this endless feeling of helplessness, the feeling of not feeling achieved. That will obviously lead into some form of depression. We have people getting anxiety from that. And in worst cases, you have young people in this country and in this continent committing suicide from these kind of rates of unemployment and so on. The second use case would be a young professional. It's December. You have black tax. You are the first in your family to get a job. You are the first in your family to get a university degree. There is a massive and overwhelming obligation from you to try and help your family back at home. It could be your mom, your father, your grandparents, your sister who has the two kids, and that implication falls on you. During the festive season, it increases. Like I mentioned with the pitfalls, you have the children's clothes, you have the stationery, you have the Christmas food that people want to eat on that day. These are constant financial pressures that you're having that are setting you back as a personal, as a young professional, as an individual from achieving your own personal financial goals. Because of that, we see quite a lot of people becoming a bit more depressed as well, their anxiety peaking in, that sense of comparing themselves with their counterparts, where you have friends that have achieved more, where they didn't have to give that black tax. They were able to buy their first car, buy their first house, buy their first apartments, go on vacations. You don't have that luxury because your family is depending on you. And lastly, we have the Mureki, the buyer, the impressor of ladies, of men, of everyone. You have the person who decided that with their third paycheck, they were going to take out a really expensive car at the dealership. They were going to buy an apartment in a nice upmarket place. And because of all of those increasingly expensive, cost living, they are not able to maintain that lifestyle, especially when they are with their friends, especially during the festive season. It's parties, it's drinks, it's friends, it's on and on and on and on. And you find people in the kind of situation where at the end of the day, they are not actually able to sustain that lifestyle. That is leading obviously to, again, that sense of hopelessness, that sense of I can't confide in anyone because, again, people expect a certain kind of standard or stature from me. Those kind of feelings lead to depression, they lead to anxiety. And we've seen in most cases with men that it actually leads to suicide where now we're picking up that there has been a spike in male suicide across the country as well. So those are the kind of impacts that we're starting to see. So when you're looking at that from the society perspective, you start seeing that society plays a big role with you, with how you manage your financial decisions and so on. From my own personal experience, how I would go about addressing and mitigating these challenges, there are quite a lot of ways that I would go. One of the first thing I always tell people is to find your people, confide in others, whether it's financial counselors, it's mental health workers, it's a trusted friend, or somebody who can just create a safe space for you. Find that person, share with that person, and get advice from that person. With being mindful, another big piece is always being mindful with yourself. I always call it the self-awareness chart. It's tracking your mood for that day. How are you feeling today? What are you thinking about? What are those thoughts that are at the back of your mind? And in addition to that, from those thoughts or those concerns, what can you control and what is beyond your control? It's important for us to be able to differentiate between the two, because then you'll see that that feeling of helplessness is not actually necessary, because again, it's out of your control. Confronting those stresses is a big piece. Avoiding those debt collector calls is not going to help you. Avoiding opening your banking app to see your bank balance is not going to make the situation go away. Procrastinating on such items are one of the leading causes of anxiety buildups in people and massive cause of stress, which we have seen will lead to very bad chronic illnesses and in the worst case scenario, even death. Physical exercise and keeping active. It's important to fill your me cup. Doing stuff for your family and for your friends is honorable. It is a beautiful thing to do, but it's always important to take care of yourself as an individual. Doing stuff for you, your hobbies, your interest. If any of you right now on the call are saying, I don't have a hobby or an interest, that means the point I just said is for you. So find a hobby, find an interest, and find something that fills your cup. I would also touch on learning a new skill. We found that people that are more active, that are physically active and are exercising, it builds up and increases serotonin in their body. Increasing serotonin means that you're opening up your mind. You're in a happier mood. You see your problems in a different perspective. And in most cases, you are going to find a different solution to help you with the problem that you're facing. And then lastly, and most importantly, is having very clear boundaries. A lot of people find themselves in financial situations because they're not very clear on what their boundaries are. Communicate this with your family, what you can and what you cannot afford, and also communicate it with yourself, what you can and what you cannot afford for every single month. Lastly, I would love to say that there is a poet and an activist and a fellow mental health advocate called Lim Sissy, and he said that it is that sense of isolation that makes you feel like nobody has experienced what you are experiencing. That when you are crying, you're the only one that cries. And because of that singular experience, it can be the most debilitating and the most depressing situation that you can find yourself in. And the only way you can break free is for you to find others, is for you to find a community. And I believe that this community that you guys have here is a great step moving forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. That was really jam-packed with so many golden nuggets. I really loved, especially my takeaways was the black tax. I'm sure some members in the audience are probably hearing about that for the first time. And then also the fact boundaries. Many Africans are not taught how to have boundaries. It's a foreign concept. So that those were really, really nice nuggets. Also the point about avoiding a situation won't make it go away. So people need to actually learn how to face on all this. Thank you so much, Miss Portia. Those were really great insights. Members in the audience, if you have any questions for Miss Portia, please type them in the chat box and we will rotate back to them. Now, moving on swiftly, our next speaker is Mr. Ahmed Moshed. And your question, Mr. Ahmed, is in your opinion, what are the common misconceptions about managing finances during the festive period? And how can we, understanding these, contribute to better long term outcomes? Also, from your expertise and experience, are there any specific strategies or tools you can give us and recommend that can help us plan to manage our finances effectively during this festive season and also in the long term? Mr. Ahmed, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much for the question. Actually, we did take some points regarding these types of misconceptions and pitfalls during the festive period, and also based because actually I like to make my surveys and get my information on ground. So I go conduct some, as I mentioned earlier, I go conduct some surveys and ask some questions to my friends. I have a huge network on Instagram, being like a financial advisor here in Egypt. So one of the common misconceptions and pitfalls is overspending. As we mentioned earlier, the African and the Arab people, they have this type of impulse buying and exceeding budget limits usually. This will lead by all means to overspending during the holidays. So I'll just mention the misconception or the pitfall, and I will follow it with the solution how to overcome this kind of misconception. So the first one we did mention is the overspending, the impulse buying. So simply, if you'd like to avoid this, you just need to set a realistic budget, plan purchases in advance, and stick to the allocated amount for each category. The second thing is, as I mentioned, the credit card debt accumulation. So we go ahead and just say to yourself, I'll go ahead and buy this now and pay it later, but you don't calculate the high yield on the credit card. So you rely heavily on your credit card without a clear repayment plan that will lead anyway to a high interest debt. The solution for that is you can just use your credit card wisely and pay attention to your interest rate plan and prioritize paying off any credit card balances at a time. Third thing is neglecting regular expenses. So you just focus on your holiday spending budget, and you just neglect your regular bills and expenses. So you just need to prioritize your regular bills and account for them in your budget alongside with your holiday expenses. The fourth one is the ignoring the financial goals. You just forget the long-term financial goals in your mindset, because you currently have a priority to spend your holiday as you like. So align your holiday spending with broader financial goals and consider the impact of the short-term decisions and on long-term objectives. One other thing is overcommitting to social obligations. So accepting every invitation and overspending on social events can strain finances. So the solution for that is just be selective about your social commitments, communicate your budget constraints with friends and family, and consider low-cost alternatives for socializing. And the last thing is you're not seeking discount, you're just showing off to when you're with your friends. So you're neglecting to explore discounts and sales opportunities during the holiday shopping. So just be proactive in seeking discounts, using your coupons, and taking advantage of sales events to maximize savings. The second or the other part of the question, because mainly it's the core of my job, which is the financial planning and managing finances during the holiday season. You just need to create a holiday budget, and you just need to prioritize the spending. Just need to identify the most important aspects of the holidays for you and your family and allocate a larger portion of your budget to those areas. And at the same time, just use your cash, use your debit card, and avoid or just minimize using your credit card. So consider using cash or debit cards for holiday expenses to avoid accumulating the credit card debt. One other thing is you just need to set realistic expectations. Communicate with your family, as I said, your budget constraints, set realistic expectations regarding gift exchange, and take advantage of sales and discounts. And at the same time, you just need to avoid the impulse buying and use some tools like the budgeting apps. You can use, for example, Mint or YNAP. You need a budget or a bucket guard to track expenses and set spending limits and monitor your financial goals. And at the same time, you can use an expense tracker and just use it without an application, using a spreadsheet or expenses tracking tool to record all your holiday or festive related expenses. This will provide you with a clear overview of where your money is going. And you just need also to set up alerts through your online banking, the online banking alerts to receive notifications when you approach or exceed your budget limit. And last but not least, the saving account. You can just create a separate saving account from the year start for your holiday expenses and contribute to this throughout the year to spread the financial burden. And I'd like to mention one last thing is the financial planner consultation. I know this is very few in our African countries and the Arab countries at the same time. So consider consulting with a financial planner for personalized advice and guidance on managing your finances during the holiday and achieving long-term financial goals. I'm nearly done, and thank you very much for giving me the floor for this period.
Thank you, Mr. Ahmed. That was really, really insightful. I love the fact that you spoke about social etiquette that is predominant in Africa, and that is feeling obligated to attend each and every festivity. So that was a really important thing you highlighted. Be selective, guys. Be selective on what you go for, because any function, it's not for free. You have to buy an outfit. You have to spend money on transport. Do not feel obligated. Just be selective and attend only those that you must. That was a very important point that I picked out amongst, of course, the so many that you made. All right, moving on to our next speaker, Miss Tura Oyebode. Your question is, as the insurer in the room, from an insurance perspective, in your opinion, how does one's financial behavior during the festive season influence their long-term financial security and, of course, mental health well-being? And of course, based on your experience and what you've seen over the years in your work, please share with us insights on the role of insurance in managing financial risks associated with holiday expenses. Specifically, tell us what ways can individuals integrate insurance planning into their overall financial strategy so that they have a more secure and stress-free festive season. Miss Mistura, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. So you might be hearing some noise on the ground. I'm currently in transit, so you just have to, just bear with me for the few minutes I have to speak. Thank you for the questions, and you can see from what every other speaker has said, it's obvious that, the stressors and, anxiety that can arise from all of these financial things, if not curtailed, can have a long-term effect on mental health, right? Because you're spending and, money kept aside, for better purposes, you find out that, you're spending it on other expenses. So since we discussed that, the impact of overspending on mental health, it's important to also see how financial risk management would help to mitigate, the stress that comes with spending during the festive season. One thing I would say, because I'm coming from the insurance perspective, is one goal of insurance, one thing insurance has in mind is to give you stability, peace of mind as regards your spending, right? There are so many unforeseen circumstances that can happen, unforeseen events that can lead to, spending. Sometimes it might not always be voluntary, right? The festive spending and all that might not always be something that you want to happen, but then it's life. Accidents happen, things happen. So what insurance seeks to do is, just mitigate and make it easier on you, at least bear the financial burden of all of these happenings. So for me, during I work in the insurance industry, and trust me, the festive season is when we see many claims, right? Comes from motor accidents, then down to homeowners. That's most of the time people are traveling and they leave their houses unattended to. So anything can happen, and because of the season, it's winter, so it's easy for fire incidents to happen. And you see cases of where people left to go on holidays and they're back and the house has been raised down by fire, and you keep wondering, oh, this is not even what I planned. A lot of things can happen which can also be involuntary, unexpected. So it's important to have insurances in place to mitigate this, to mitigate all of these risks that might be all foreseen, but they are bound to happen. For example, people travel, there's bound to be accidents on the road. People travel by air, by road, whatever means, there's bound to be accidents. See, some people, nobody had all of this coming in mind. Apart from all of those spending that you might have budgeted and, foreseen, all of these other ones, you might not have foreseen it. And eventually they are going to impact on whatever savings you think you have or whatever cost you think you save by, just being with your family and going, someplace and, so having said all that, I think one of the ways in which we can try to mitigate and plan ahead all of this to help us save our financial budget. I would like to think we have an idea how insurance works, right? You pay premium, so your loss is covered. For example, if your vehicle is a 5 million naira, I have to use naira, pardon me. I'm a Nigerian. If your vehicle is a 5 million naira vehicle, you pay a percentage of the 5 million naira, right, to get cover. So if there's anything that happens in your absence, or maybe while you're traveling, or maybe when the car is parked, you're covered. So this brings peace of mind, and you're not expending so much on replacing the car. So that's the basis of insurance. The claim aspect is the basis of insurance. So I would just try to list down series of insurances we can, just have, have in place. So most of the time, most of these insurances, it's better to have inserted them at the beginning of the year, but it's never too late to, try to put these insurances in place, because trust me, having this insurance would help you, because you don't have to start running helter skelter. All you have to deal with is the sentimental loss you've occurred. You don't have to deal with the financial value of the loss that has been sustained. It could be damage to your property, theft, several other things, burglary too. Thieves can come into your house when you're not around. Training for that. Those are the things that happen in life. So some of the examples of insurance I think would help. I'm just going to be listing them briefly and just give small explanations on them. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. So you can put in place car insurance policies, for those of us that will be traveling, so in case there is an accident or maybe there's a damage to a third party, while you're on the road, you don't have to incur extra expenses, trying to, fix your cars and all that. Your insurance company would cover for that as far as it's insured and it's an insured period. Then you can also put in place health and life insurance policies. Accidents happen, people die, right? So it's just important to put in place all of these insurances, right? So in the event of extreme cases of maybe death and all that, you're not spending out of pocket, and your money is saved for that. Then you can also put in place travel insurance, both for national and international travel, right? Because many things can happen, which includes hospitalization, right? So all of these things can have a negative impact on us and can, in fact, impact on our budget. So when we have all of these insurances in place, you're just paying a premium that's a very small percentage of, the kind of risk that might eventually occur at the end. So you can also insure your house content in the case of a theft or burglary. For example, if your TV or whatever is stolen, you know that, you can always make a claim with the insurance company and, that's covered. And there are several other insurances, but for the lack of time, I've just mentioned this few. And there are also some housekeeping guidelines I'll just, briefly mention that I think will be important. For example, at this period, it's important to clear your gutter ways, it's important to switch off your all forms of electricity when you're traveling, it's also important that, whenever you're planning get together with friends and all that, it's in a safe location, right? Not close to construction sites and the like, where different forms of liability can occur. So I hope I've been able to answer your question, and that's just my, response to the questions asked. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ms. Mistura. Yes, definitely. You were able to answer the questions, and as always, your very unique perspective is very much appreciated. To the audience members, I'm just going through the comments. I do not see any questions. Mostly appreciation to the panelists. I see. Thank you so much, Mr. Ahmed. Wow, Portia, this is powerful. Thank you, Ms. Portia, for the valuable insights. It is so important to have a financial advisor. Yes, we agree very highly. Someone saying, I've seen people fall for scams during festive season as they try to increase their finances and then they lose everything. Yes, that is very, very true. And I see Mr. Mark asking, what is the difference between mental health and mental illness? Okay, we can have Mr. Thami answer this. Yes, I think that is the only question that has been asked so far from the audience. So we shall have Mr. Thami answer this question and then start winding up the webinar. Mr. Thami, the floor is yours. The question is, what is the difference between mental health and mental illness? Mr. Thami, are you with us? Mr. Thami, your microphone is muted if you can hear me.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Okay, all right. Someone from the audience was asking the difference between mental health and mental illness.
Well, if I were to give it a shot, I would say mental health is when somebody is actually benefiting from therapy sessions and is taking the time to do the things that contribute positively to their mental health. For example, if someone meditates, they do more of that. If someone likes to play sports to feel better or likes to fight, they join a gym or join a fight club, for example. That for me is mental health. And mental illness is a condition that is as a result of maybe being chronically sad for a prolonged period of time. Maybe for 2 weeks, you're feeling sad and you don't know why you feel sad in particular, and you have feelings of hopelessness and helplessness. I would describe that as mental illness. Yeah, thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Thank you. That was very elaborate. Okay, so I see another question from the audience. Someone is asking, how does one craft their personal finances as a young person who is just starting out? Okay, I think we can have Miss Portia answer the question. Or actually, Mr. Ahmed, since he's the financial advisory expert. Mr. Ahmed, could you please advise? Someone is asking, how does a young person starting out craft their personal finances?
Okay, that's a very good question. Because simply I've received this question a lot from a lot of people, some students and some fresh grads and people under 30s. If you just need to go ahead and craft your own personal finances, you just need to focus on. We will take the part of spending first. You just need to focus on your essential spendings. Avoid the high yield in installments like the credit card and the BNPL, and you just need to make your emergency fund. This is just the start, and then you will ask yourself three questions for the we call it the TOR equation, TOR. The T is for the time horizon, and O for the objectives, and the last thing, the R is for risk tolerance. So every person of us has his own stamp in investment and managing finances. So, for example, you'll ask yourself the time horizon of investment. If I'm short-term investor or short-term financial planning plan, medium-term, long-term, and the objective. Do I need passive income? Do I need to make value keeping? Do I need to make whatever type of objective is okay? And the last thing is the risk tolerance. Will I take the risk, or I'm a moderate risk taker, or I don't take the risk and I'm a conservative person? After you answer these three questions, you will be able to define which financial instrument you're going to use. But always, the age is has direct effect on these three questions, because simply if you're a young age, your time horizon will be way longer than the old people, and you will have wider objectives for investment and financial planning, and at the same time you will have risk tolerance way higher than the old people. So I'll not be able to tell someone who's 50 or 60 years old to go ahead with 10 years financial plan, or for example, to take risk up to 50 to 60%. Based on Harvard statistics regarding this part of financial planning, they say that people above 50 and 60 years old, they only take the risk with 15% of their cap, while people between 18 to 35, they can take risk up to 65% of their cap. So simply, you can use longer financial instruments and use around 30% as hedging tools. And just remember always, because we all suffer from this, the inflation is killing most of the finances in all our countries. So you just need to keep small portion of cash, because, forgive my language, cash is trash. But you just need to keep this in an emergency fund, a money market fund, any type of mutual funds that has low risk levels, 10 to 15% in cash, and the other to be in equities, gold, and real estate, some stuff like that. I hope that I covered the question, and I addressed the answer as it is. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, you did answer the question. Now I'll open up the floor to the audience. Does anyone want to share their story of financial stress or distress, or want to just basically share their opinion of how they found the webinar? You can just raise your hand and then I'll be able to see. Or you want to share your opinion on some of the things the speakers talked about, just put up your hand and then you'll be able to unmute your mic so we can hear you. Anyone? Okay, all right. Don't see any hands yet. So I think I would say it's been a good session. Silence also means that the points were elaborately explained and there are no questions or further inquiries. Okay, so thank you so much. A big virtual round of applause to our awesome speakers. Thank you so much for dissecting a topic that is very taboo in African society. People don't love to talk about money or address it, yet it's a very vital part of our society. Thank you for sharing your stories with us and being vulnerable with us. That is definitely not an easy thing to do. And because of what you've shared, young people or the people in this audience are going to go away better people or better equipped to spend this festive season. So, guys, if we come and look for you in January and you are not doing better off than you did last year, then we're definitely going to find you because you have no excuses now. You have in your docket or in your pocket the solutions and techniques on how to be better financial spenders. So now we can ask everyone to just unmute, say their name, country, just to basically have a feel of who is in the room before we unwind the session. So I could just start with Shepang Thabane. Which country are you from? And also how they pronounce your name. Thabane. Can you unmute your mic?
Hello, everybody. It's Tepa.
Okay.
Tepa Kaban. I'm from Lesotho. I'm a co-founder of a company called Greenyards, which specializes in market aggregation and sustainable agriculture and infrastructure. Thank you.
Awesome. I don't think you're the first person I know from Lesotho. Thank you. Thank you for joining the call. It's a pleasure to have your acquaintance. Next we have Sami Rubushe. Which country are you? Oh, sorry. This is Sami. I was going in order. I really know your country. Okay, so Simon Mutega or Simon. Help us also know how to pronounce your name.
Simon there.
Okay.
So I'm joining from Malawi.
Oh, nice. Okay. Thank you. How is Malawi?
Malawi is cold now.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining the call. All right. Next, we have Peter Gordon Ekebu. I think I have an idea where that name is from, but let's hear, Peter. Where are you from?
I pray that you've guessed it right. I'm from Uganda.
I thought
Actually, I'm from
Nigeria.
the northern.
Okay. Ekebu is a Ugandan name.
Yeah, from the eastern part of Uganda.
Interesting. Okay. Welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for joining.
You're welcome.
All right. Kumo Pio. Sela Yagosi. Kumo, where are you from? Kumo, your mic is muted. All right. right, she's probably having connectivity issues. We have Khan. Oh my God, Puwat. Please also guide us on how to pronounce your name. Khan, where are you from? Okay, Khan has texted. Khan all the way from Nairobi. All right, Khan, it's a pleasure to have you on the call. Then we have Jawad Chafil. Jawad, where are you from?
Hi, I'm from North Africa, from Morocco.
All the way from Morocco. Beautiful. Thank you for joining, Jawad.
Thank you.
We have Dr. Feyera Gemeda. Dr. Feyera, where are you joining us from?
Thank you, Natalie, for your invitation. I am from Ethiopia.
Beautiful, beautiful. Wow, Ethiopia in the house. All right, then we have Chanda Chikwanka. Wow, sorry if I butchered your name. How do they pronounce your name, Chanda?
Yes, it's Chanda Chikwanka.
Okay, where are you calling from?
I'm Chanda from Zambia.
Zambia. Okay, beautiful. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is more or less it. It's really, really astounding to see the representation from technically all across Africa. We have North Africa in the building, East Africa, South Africa. I think we're only missing Central Africa. If there's anyone from Central Africa and I've not recognized you, just put your shout out in the chat. But that is beautiful. It's not every day you get to see a webinar that is very diversely represented, and the speakers can get to know that their knowledge and insights have been had all across the continent, literally. Okay, so my closing remarks would be about our Yalda I Bootcamp that will be taking place in South Africa. Those of you hearing about it for the first time, the Yalda I Bootcamp is an intensive training program for young African entrepreneurs in trade wishing to be involved in, or those wishing to be involved in trade. This is going to be our 8th biannual bootcamp, and it's slated to take place at the Future Africa Center University from 21st February to 25th February under the theme Breaking Information Barriers on Intra-Africa Trade, Accelerating Youth Inclusiveness in Implementing the Africa Free Continental Trade Area Agreement. Basically, this year's bootcamp will bring together over 350 youth and prominent professionals in person and over 5,000 young people virtually from across Africa. The bootcamp is going to provide a platform for these young entrepreneurs to connect with dedicated investors and overcome any challenges they have in securing capital. We are pleased to announce that we've already confirmed Afri-Exim Bank, UNDP, UNECA, ITC, and the AFCTFA Secretariat as partners in organizing this bootcamp. So basically, everyone in the audience, we invite you to take part in the iBootcamp. If you haven't registered, please do. And also tell an entrepreneur to tell an entrepreneur to tell an entrepreneur to get involved in the iBootcamp. And of course, if you want any more information on the iBootcamp, follow us on Yalda on all social media pages. We'll be giving major updates. All right. So thank you so much, everyone. I know it's not easy taking time out of your schedule, but this was such an insightful webinar, and we hope that you are better people for it. To our speakers, we appreciate you so, so, so much. If we're able to save, maybe you should send us your PayPal, so we send you a tip or a bonus for the insights you've shared. If we're able to make some savings over the festive season, we'll be sure to shout out to you. But otherwise, thank you, everyone, and have an awesome, awesome, awesome night. Cheers.